This podcast is proud to be part of the TalkSPORT Fan Network. TalkSPORT. Powered by fans.
Hello, welcome to this special edition of Trentside Trent, as we are delighted to be joined by a member of our promotion-winning side to the Premier League and someone who was part of our survival-winning side back in the Premier League for the first time in 23 years. Steve Cook, how are you?
Yeah, well, thanks. Hot as well.
Good. I know we was talking a little bit off air. How's the off-season going? How was your holidays? You're looking very well. Looking well tanned for this new French manager you've got in at QPR.
And shaved my hair off as well. Lovely off-season. Really nice to get away. Obviously, at the end of the season, body's feeling it more than ever. So, a few nice holidays. But well and truly back involved in training, running around the pitch and trying to get fit.
I mean, first of all, whereabouts did you go on holiday?
We went to Barbados first, which was really nice and relaxing.
Nice.
Marbella, and then a wedding in the south of France. So,
lovely.
A bit of jet setting, yeah. So,
yeah, the tour then.
Yeah, a bit of a tour. So it's always harder when you go on holiday to be good. So a few beers and whatnot. So I've got an extra bit of running now to run it off.
Cool. Just before we do get into, obviously, coming to Forest, etc., you obviously come to the City Ground as a Bournemouth player. What's it kind of like as an opposing player coming to Forest? Is it intimidating, or is it a place where you think actually, freedom to kind of play here?
Bit of both, actually. We always knew about. You were kind of briefed on the atmosphere and what you could expect, but it was also, when you're a player, it's exciting to play at these grounds. Like you see the other side of the atmosphere, you kind of soak it up, and it's just how quickly you go into them games thinking how quickly you can turn the crowd. That's as an away player, that's kind of your job. How quickly can you turn the crowd? You hear stories. A lot of fans, stadiums, they turn quite quickly, and we were never really told that about not coming out to Forest, but it was also always going to be a good atmosphere. But yeah, if you can kind of get past that, it was always a great place to play as a player. So I only played there, I think, twice as a opposition player. I think it was twice. One with a crowd and one without. So there was no hostility. The second one in COVID, and I think I only lasted about 45 seconds before I got injured. So I wasn't much good that day anyway. So it was always well known about the crowd and even playing at the stadium, how difficult it is for an opposition player.
Yeah, because I hate to remind you, but you was part of the team the last time we actually beat Bournemouth, which was back in 2015, I believe. Yeah, because Forest got promoted. You won the league. Games. Yeah. We I remember that night because you absolutely come out the blocks flying and went 1-0 ahead and battered us, and then all of a sudden we just kind of scored 2 goals. I think it was Lascelles and Lansbury scored for us.
Yeah, I think Dougie Freeman
just he got
the better of us both times. I can't remember. Was it Matty Fry? Maybe scored back.
Yeah, Pierce was manager then for us.
Yeah.
Again, you battered us that night as well, and we can never beat Bournemouth anymore. So it's probably for that season.
I know they're a bit of a bogey team now, aren't they? But to be fair, it's Forest got a couple of good results against us back in the day, so they probably owe you now.
So just taking it back to kind of the start of your career at Forest, how did the move come about? Because I know there was a lot of links. This is online and you can tell us in a minute, but there was a lot of links with QPR. Did you speak to Steve Cooper prior, and what made you say yes to Forest over QPR, if that was true?
I spoke to the manager quite often. I was actually told I could leave Bournemouth in the summer, but very, very late on in the window. It was like 2 or 3 days left in the window. So there was a bit of interest in the summer, but it never quite kind of materialized because it was very kind of short time to get it done. So I knew in December that there was the interest, and QPR as well. So it went. I was very close to going QPR, and I spoke to Steve Cooper a few times, and it was more so the location wise. It was my family weren't sure on moving up to Nottingham. So once I spoke to the manager, there was obviously a lot of reassurances. I've never lived away from the sea, so it was kind of right. Are we really going to do this? So, but once I spoke to the manager, once I spoke to the people at the club, it was a no-brainer for me to come up, and I was always desperate to play for a huge club, and it was the right time in my career. And fortunately enough for me, the interest turned into the move, and never really looked back. Actually, I moved up initially on my own, and then once we got promoted, once the new season started, my whole family moved up, so it was nice.
You was never too far away from water, though, Steve, with the Trent being so close to the ground.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I never really had a dip in there, though, I've got to be honest.
I wouldn't blame you. It looks filthy. What was you aware that you was going to play in a back three with Joe Worrell and Scott McKenna in like a 3-4-3, and what made that system so good in the Championship when you joined us, and maybe who was a bit of an unsung hero in that system as well?
Yeah, I knew how the manager played, so I obviously played against the manager when he was at Swansea, and when he was at Swansea, I was playing in the middle of a back three for Bournemouth. So I knew at that point he was aware of myself as a player, and then obviously I knew what sort of team I was stepping into at Forest. But it was different. The way I played, the way he wanted me to play in the middle of a three was different to what I was used to. He wanted me to kind of like step into midfield and receive the ball. So it was new for me because I never really saw myself as a holding centre midfielder. Sometimes stepping in and being aggressive. So that was a learning point for me as well. But yeah, I was playing in the middle of two other great centre halves. Was top centre back, really good defender, very good on the ball, and Scotty McKenna was terrific as well. I do think Scotty was, and Jack Colback definitely underrated in that team, because Scotty, I don't think, put a foot wrong in the time I was there, and Colback kind of shifted between midfield and left wing back seamlessly. So yeah, they're and even now, so I played it with Jack at QPR for the last 2 years, and he's been brilliant there as well. And obviously Scotty, I'm still very close with as well. So yeah, maybe a little bit biased because I'm still close with both of them. But yeah, they were definitely pivotal in that team.
Scott McKenna seems to be enjoying life in Spain, to be fair, which is quite a decent move for him overall. But yeah, had a year in La Liga. But obviously, for yourself, I mean, it was a hell of a start for you at Forest. Obviously, first game, I think I'm right, at the City Ground was Arsenal in the FA Cup, and then first league game, I think, was Derby at home, or very shortly afterwards anyway. Obviously, how was those experiences after 10 years at Bournemouth? What was it sort of like, sort of shifting from, so that would have been disparaging towards Bournemouth, but a much sort of smaller crowd to a much more sort of bigger one in that sort of sense? Yeah,
obviously the Arsenal game for myself was great. It turned out in the end amazing for myself, but I obviously thought it's not the easiest kind of debut to have. And I know what football fans are like. If I'd gone up and had an absolute nightmare, you kind of get written off straight away. So I wouldn't say worried, but I knew I had to kind of really kind of put a marker down early doors. So I was delighted. Obviously, it went the way I wanted to, and obviously then the atmosphere in the ground that night was incredible, and I kind of knew then it was a bit of realism of how big the club I signed for was. So the excitement, and when I saw my family after and my friends that came up, it was like, okay, this is a huge club, and I really need to maintain them standards, otherwise you're going to get swallowed up a little bit. So it was a perfect night for me, because I kind of realized very quickly where I needed to be, and the standards that I needed to play at. So yeah, it was that night was incredible. Goes down definitely as one of my best in my career, because obviously to beat Arsenal was top, and that FA Cup run went hand in hand with the kind of league form that we had as well.
I mean, just touching on that, I mean, that season we were the team that came up on the rails, I suppose. I mean, in terms of the dressing room, was the belief there when you signed that we could get in the playoffs and crash them? Or, I mean, did conversations take place in the dressing room? Did you genuinely think, promotion was a possibility when you signed? Or, at what point did it become realistic, sort of thing?
No, it was never, when I spoke to the manager, it was never to be promoted that season. It was also to see where we were going. Obviously the manager came in, he obviously went on a nice run, got the club into a bit of like middle ground in the league, but there was still we were still a lot of points behind. So it was more so to consolidate and in mind to push next year. But I remember being after training one afternoon, me and Lewis Grabban just chatting in the shower, and like, right, we've got to win a lot of points here to go up top two. So we were talking about top two, to be honest. After a few wins, we were like, we can chase down Bournemouth, but it would be really, really difficult. We were like, I can't remember how many games we had, but I think it was like, right, we've got to win 12 out of 15 or whatever it was then. And every time you win one, it's like, okay, then you win again. It's like, and that belief really, really grew into the squad. And we actually didn't really look at the playoffs. We always thought that we'd chase down the top two, and we almost did. Just goes to show how kind of the form that I don't think I lost at the City Ground, apart from that Sheffield United game in the playoff semi-final, which I don't really count as a loss. I never lost a home game at the City Ground till the Premier League. So it just goes to show kind of how good a team we were.
Just before we kind of move on towards the end of the season, I know Christian mentioned it, but what did you make of the game against Derby? With obviously, that being, our kind of derby with them from Forest perspective.
I was loving it until I gave the penalty away. I didn't
want to mention.
I actually felt.
Yeah, I didn't.
I actually felt worse after that Derby game, even though we'd won, than I did when we'd lost games, because I knew kind of how much it meant to obviously the lads in the group, and I nearly put that result in jeopardy. So yeah, that was I actually don't. I look back now and think I didn't enjoy the experience, because obviously the penalty I give away. So yeah, if I could go back, I think I would kind of just brush that aside and kind of take it all in a bit more. The atmosphere, I think I probably got caught up in it as well. I thought, well, I'm going to nail him here, and
you did. To be fair, it was, if you're going to give a penalty away, that's sort of
but then it's like I look back at my career, and that's really something that I was very taught early in. Like, do not slide tackle in the box. Like, that's just one rule. Gus Poyet put it into all his players: do not slide tackle in the box, and it's very And I just see that ball and him. I thought, right, okay, I'll nail him here.
Just before Reece jumps back in, Steve, I think me and him cursed you, because I was like, Steve Cook's having a really good day, like the game. I just wanted to ask you, in hindsight, Joe, with all the stuff that happens with Ravel Morrison and Bree Samba absolutely housering, like Joe, when you've just joined this club, what do you think of our lunatic goalkeeper at this moment in time? Because he's the guy behind you. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I think the Millwall game, so my first game. It was away, and we were 1-0 up with a few seconds to go, and they're chucking balls into the box, and he's caught a ball like that in one hand, and I've turned around and looked at him and thought, what is that? Like, how's he even done it? And I'm like, right, okay, this guy's nuts. Like, he's dribbling past me with a ball away from home at the den, and I'm like, right, okay, he's a character. So we'll try and rein him in. But there was none of that. I think Stoke at home when he's hit Jagielka on the back of the head. I think it was Jagielka, and somehow we've nicked a draw. And you're like, Brees, what are you doing? And he's just. But what a goalkeeper! We had unbelievable characters in that group, but none will ever get close to him.
I was going to say, if it's any consolation of giving that penalty away, at least we sort of put the moment of him pushing Tom Lawrence into the net and him sort of being half stuck there while it all sort of kicked off afterwards. So there was that. At least.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, maybe a bit of good to come from it, but yeah, no, definitely that was a disappointing, great day, obviously. But my family were up there that day, and I was just sat there thinking, what was I doing? I couldn't even, maybe a bit selfish in the end, but I was thinking. Nightmare, obviously, as a centre half, giving away a penalty, 2-0 up, cruising, and then because they were decent that year, I thought under Rooney, they were not as bad as kind of the league said, and that was a tough game for us. I think they always are. Derby matches, I haven't played in too many, but it was a tough one. It was I was upset at the end of the game, so it was a bit of a shame.
Yeah, I think they were chasing that deficit, weren't they, at the time, and they had a bit of form. Because I remember they had a chance quite early on in that game, and Lawrence put it wide. He should have scored, really.
Well, we changed formation that game, and I think the manager changed quite quickly during maybe 15, 20 minutes into, because we got battered, I think, for the first kind of 10, 15 minutes. So, but again, that was kind of credit to the manager as well. He was very quick to put things right, and we were very, very good in under the manager and in that championship season.
So obviously moving on to so we get all these wins together, and then we're all probably thinking again with yourself, like January time, if we can get in the playoffs, what an amazing season, because we were bottom of the league after half a dozen games, and then we get to a point where after the game is rearranged due to the wind on the south coast, we won't go into that, with Bournemouth having a lot of injuries at the time. It's basically, kind of a toss of the coin game. They win, obviously they're promoted. We win, we go into the last day in second, and if we win at Hull, then we're going to get up. Obviously, you came out after the game and said that, your father had been taken ill. When did you kind of find out about that? Was that before or after the game?
No, it was as I came off, really. So yeah, it was my friends worked for Bournemouth at the time, and they were, I think they wanted to let me know, and my family were like, no, do not tell him, just let him play the game. So yeah, it wasn't until kind of I'd been subbed off, come in, gone down, and I instantly, when I see everyone in like the tunnel, I was thinking, this is strange. So yeah, quickly got whisked away and went down to but I obviously cut my head massive, like really, really badly in the game also. So it was a bit strange. So I was in the hospital getting stitched up down the middle of my head, and then my dad's next door. All the doctors and that around him, so it was kind of a bit weird. Yeah, very surreal moment. So no, not a good night all round. But actually, footballing wise, I think it was the best thing that happened to us, losing that game, because if we'd gone into that last game and we hadn't been promoted top two, I think you go into the playoffs with a black cloud hanging over your head. Because you expect to go up, whereas we had 2.5 weeks to kind of regroup and be like, right, this is where we're at, and that playoff run, the playoff final it's the best way to go up. Winning the playoff final is the best way to go up. It's the hardest, the most nerve-wracking, but the emotions and the celebrations you get, it's the best.
Obviously, as well, because after the furore after the game, obviously you wouldn't have been a part of it because you was in hospital and that, like the next few days, and then we obviously go to Hull away as well, and we score in the last minute, and in typical Forest way, we draw the game. Incredibly, that day, that was Sunday. That also changed the playoff picture, because if we would have held on, we would have played Luton. After that happened as well, was it kind of any doubt, and was Was there a preference from the lads who would play in the playoffs at all?
I think we would have rather played Sheffield United in the semis. I think it would have been, the final would have been a different final. We thought that whoever won between us and Sheffield, that over the 2 legs would go up. I think, no disrespect to the other teams, but we felt we was a lot better than those two. Sheffield United had a very good squad. It was always going to be a tough game, and we felt, especially after the first leg, well, we absolutely battered them. There was no way they should have been even with a chance in the second leg. We should have been 2-3-0 up in that leg and tie over. But conceding late on, it was a real bit of a leveler for them because they came with a bit of momentum. They were a lot better than us on the second leg. Obviously, heroics from Brees, and it was meant to be for us to kind of go through and get to Wembley. But yeah, that second leg was really, really difficult to play in because the game was very intense. The atmosphere and the ground was incredible at the start, but it was I think the fans were a little bit startled when Sheffield United kind of got their 2 goals, and we was rocked massively. We was massively up against the ropes.
Go on, Christian.
I was going to say it was weird because I remember you mentioned Sheffield. Obviously, when we played Sheffield United in the league, I remember we had it Friday night and in March. Again, we absolutely battered them, but we drew the game. It was like, we needed a last minute. We had 1 lapse and they scored pretty much. I wanted to ask, obviously, one player, obviously, he now plays for Forest, ironically enough. That whole season, Gibbs White was a massive thorn on our side. Yeah. I think he scored 4 goals against us that season for Wolves and Sheffield United. What was he sort of like to come up against us on a pitch basis?
Well, I had to when he signed, I had to apologise to him because I had nailed him. Quite late on in extra time, he turned and I thought, I'm going to have to do you here. And I actually spoke to him a lot during the game because I thought to myself, right, I might just try and get in his head, but in a nice way. I was like, look, come on, look, we'll be signing you in the summer anyway. Like, Sheffield United aren't going to sign you in the summer if they go up. Like, if we go up, we'll be signing you anyway. So I kind of tried to get into him that way. Well, obviously, when I scored, it didn't really do much good. But he's a top player, Morgan. And he's a really good lad as well. He's really grown into the role he's in now. I think he's matured so much and on the pitch. You're starting to see kind of the best of him, and I think there's only more to come. So I think I remember when we signed him, it was like, we spent the club spent so much money on him and this and that, and we were like, nice, he's a perfect signing. This is kind of where we need to be at. The manager and him had a really close relationship anyway. So yeah, as a guy, he was my next door neighbour as well. So we got on really, really well. And yeah, as a player, he was terrific. Well, he is terrific. So as long as Forest keep hold of him, which I really hope they do, I think he's got an amazing future. And if the club and him can keep being aligned and keep improving, it's a match made in heaven, really.
You can make a mention for his transfer.
Yeah, thanks for the tapping up, Steve.
Yeah. Thing is, I was very close with the manager, and we obviously had conversations about players that he wants to bring in, who he's close to, and I kind of knew in my mind that he was desperate for him. So I thought he might go the other way. I thought he might take his foot off the gas a little bit and be like, all right, okay, but I'll play for Forest anyway. But it didn't seem to work. But I give it a go.
Just to strip it back to that first leg at Bramall Lane, Steve. I mean, this is in true question of sport. Who is this kind of matter? So I'm just going to bring this image up for everyone. I'll describe it to the audio listeners. It's Steve Cook with a flare in his gob as a cigar. Please explain what was going on here.
I got in a lot of trouble for that, actually.
I can imagine.
A lot of trouble. So we just won. I thought, I'm really happy. And I got pulled aside and I was like, right, you're going to have to go on Sky and apologise. I was like, for what? It's been thrown off. We've gone 2-0 up. And I got in trouble. I actually avoided a fine somehow. I don't know what was going on, mate. It was just kind of, I don't know. It was great. I see it. I thought, right, that's a bit of me. I'll get that. I'll run around with that. But yeah, they went mad after me for that. They was more worried about that than us winning. And I think they were probably a little bit worried that I might get kind of banned or something. But I was thinking, come on, we've all got to have a laugh as well. If the fans are bringing them in, we can use them as well. But yeah, that was a good one. I've done some stupid things, and that probably goes up with one of them. But imagine if I got banned for the second leg for going around smoking.
I think it kind of caught the Forest fan base out of off guard, because obviously you was captain at Bournemouth for so long, and you do come across as like that mature sort of leader. So when that kind of happened, you're like, whoa, what a character sort of thing. And
maybe I disguised that well then in front of everyone else. But maybe the real me came out and then a couple of minutes. But no, it's I got told off by the club. Which
obviously you touched on you touched on the playoff game at the City Ground and everything, but you got to talk us through the penalties, your penalty especially. I mean, I don't think any Forest fan would have put you down to take one, and the way you took it emphatically and then gave it the big one as Stuart Pearce used to in front of the A block was pretty special. And obviously Breese's heroics, not only in the game itself, but in the penalties as well. Like, did you know about the bottle thing as well? I know
I didn't know about the bottle
loads of questions in there.
We'd done a lot of practicing, obviously, in the lead up ever since kind of the last game of the season, and I hadn't missed one through training. So I thought, right, I'll always play. I always put myself forward. I always thought, if you're taking one and you miss, I would rather put myself forward and miss than have the regret of not putting myself forward. But then saying that, in the last few minutes of extra time, I was like, I can't do this. I can't take a penalty. My legs are gone. I think the nervous energy had just taken over, because they missed that chance, didn't they, where Brees saved it with his studs, and then it was like, right, this is going to be penalties. But we'd had a big meeting on the penalty scenario and our strategy. So we, as a group, wanted to be the team closest to the benches. We tried edging forward to them. We knew we was what we were doing. Sheffield United didn't. They didn't know. They weren't set up until a few seconds before the shootout started. So we knew that advantage already. And yeah, for me, when I stepped up, I just thought, I'm going to hit it as hard as I could. High, if the keeper saved that play, but I knew if I hit it well, he wouldn't. And then all my emotions of the Bournemouth game and actually getting to Wembley and being one step closer to what we kind of dreamt of, it all came out in one. And I got the lads hammered me for that celebration after for a while. So and to be fair, Steve Cooper played it a couple of times. It was a bit embarrassing actually watching it back with stuff you do on the pitch. Sometimes you forget, and then you see it after, you're like, what was I doing? Back to like the flair thing. And then obviously all the emotions came out, and it was just like, I just got a bit carried away. And I look back at it now, the pictures are lovely, but I watched the penalty back and I'm like, probably went a little bit over the top there. But
do you remember who was fifth?
Jack Colback.
Oh, really? Okay. And Jack then obviously, go on.
Obviously, Joe Lolly missed, and I actually, when me and Jack talk about it, I'm like, "You're a poo pants, mate. You didn't want to take one." He's like, "No, I was fifth. I was ready. I was going to win it for us." So he was down as fifth, but thankfully let Morgan give us a helping hand and sent us through. But yeah, luckily, I thought Lolly would smack it in, we would win the game, but he's obviously hit it over the bar, and we were like, no, here we go again. But yeah, fortunately for us, Brees was an absolute animal that night, and nothing was beating him.
And then just to touch on the playoffs, obviously Huddersfield, a tight game, a horrible game to probably watch as a neutral. It was as a Forest fan as well. It was a bit grueling.
It was as a Forest player as well. It was one of the worst games I played in.
Yeah, just talk us through that whole experience. Obviously, Huddersfield didn't even sell out their allocation. There was actually Forest fans within the Huddersfield end as well. If you've watched like a lot of videos and stuff and bits and bobs, what was that experience like, especially to go up through the playoffs? I don't know if you experienced that with Bournemouth, did you? No,
so I lost in the playoffs for Bournemouth in the COVID season. But yeah, we was very relaxed actually. I remember going for a coffee with Sam Surridge in the morning, strolling round. There was just kind of this feel in the air that we'd done the work. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of a formality for us to go there and win. I don't know if that sounds very arrogant and kind of naive, but we were very confident. We knew if we played our way. I mean, to be honest, we didn't even have to work for that game. The way Huddersfield set up and played was a real surprise. They just sat in. I felt that early doors, 10, 15 minutes into that match, we knew we were kind of the team in the ascendancy and to go and win the game, and it was kind of a matter of time before we got the goal and really imposed ourselves. But yeah, the game was actually quite disappointing. It was quite we felt that they were just trying to get to extra time or penalties to kind of just see it through that way. Obviously, we had a bit of fortune throughout the game and the own goal, but yeah, the game, the atmosphere, kind of the overriding emotions were incredible. And yeah, you look back at it now, I wish we could be there now and kind of go through it all again. But yeah, the whole day is incredible. You look back now, I always see videos still on Twitter and talk about it, and it's it was some day that you kind of never forget. And I remember walking out and just seeing like kind of the red sea of fans, and it was kind of like, right, we have to do this. We're going to do this. We'll kind of impose ourselves, win the game, look forward to the celebrations, and kind of never look back. And yeah, I just felt like it was meant to be for us.
Can I just ask you, did you think either of their penalty shots was penalties?
I think the second one, the first one, I think Lou, to be fair, dived. I don't think it was a penalty, but I think the second one with Maxi Lowe, I think if the ref had given it on the day, it wouldn't have been overturned. You can probably see why it wasn't overturned, but yeah, if I was a Huddersfield player, I would have been disappointed that we didn't get that penalty. But to be honest, overall, I don't think the way they played, I don't think they deserved either. So, and I don't think it would have affected the scoreline anyway. Even if they'd scored, I think we would have then just come out of our shells a bit and played a bit more expansive and gone on to win the game. But yeah, it was you would have expected one of them penalty shouts to be given. To be honest, yeah.
I'm pretty sure would have saved it anyway.
Well, that's it. Yeah, he would have saved it. Gone off. So,
can I just before we do move on? So this season we obviously beat Brighton away in the FA Cup, and a flare gets chucked onto the pitch at the end of the game. And similar to you, Nico Dominguez picks it up, and this time he holds it up. And guess who's there? Morgan Gibbs White telling him to chuck it on the floor. And he literally has to chuck it straight away because he probably had you in mind of getting fined.
Well, that's it. Like, and to be honest, now you're told as players, don't get involved in anything. So that's kind of where I'm at with Morgan. Like his maturity now, where he's come through, he's still extremely young to be able to kind of see that and see the dangers of what the lads are doing is commendable, you know, because he's still a young lad. He's still kind of probably thinks a lot, thinking of himself, you know, and playing. But if you kind of seeing different things like that, and as players, it's disappointing because you want to enjoy it as well. But you have to be so careful now that you can't really get involved in all the enjoyment anymore. It's a shame.
I actually agree on your penalty shouts. I completely agree. I've seen the first one back so many times.
Yeah,
there's not enough there to sort of say it's definitive. It looks like Toffolo's jumped from one angle, another angle. It looks horrible.
Yeah, was it Toffolo? Was it and Lewis O'Brien the second one?
Yeah, O'Brien. The second one, I completely agree. I'd be screaming if that was Forest and we didn't get that. That was quite contentious. But
I remember it happening, thinking, no, that's it.
Yeah, same. But obviously, those last 8-10 minutes or so, I think it was only when that ex-Derby was it Dwayne Holmes was it who gave it the big one when he scored against us before you signed. He shanked across straight into their ends, right? Yeah, that was the only point in that last 10-15 minutes where like, okay, we can actually breathe now. Like, it was horrible, absolutely horrible.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have wanted to be a fan that day because the game was for two reasons. The game was boring, and also as a Forest fan, you're naturally waiting for Huddersfield to have a chance. You're thinking they're going to go. You can't go 90 minutes or 90 odd minutes without having a real shot on target. but they didn't really.
Didn't,
Which
yeah.
was kind of in a playoff final, you always think that the team's going to get one chance. They have to.
When we got home from Wembley, my partner was like, "Shall we watch the game back?" And I was like, "Absolutely not." I said, "We'll watch the celebrations, but not the game."
I've just seen the goal, obviously the penalty shout. Apart from that, in between it was just 90 minutes of nothing.
I know the goal's obviously going to go down as famous for Forest, but even the goals, it's no goal, isn't it? And then it goes
nice
full circle.
For it, at least.
Yeah, we actually got the ball well, and I think I was the only player not to touch it, so I'm a bit fuming actually. But actually the build up to the goal was top.
It goes full circle.
Nice if he got his toe to it, but no, however it went in, it was perfect.
It has to be Forest and go full circle, and Colwell's the guy who gets the last goal of the season against us.
Yeah, it's typical, isn't it? We would take. I think obviously going off track a little bit. Any Forest fan would have taken any European position. Take all the emotion out of it. Any Forest fan, I think they'd be liars if they said at the start of last season, if you got any European competition, it'd be a miracle. So.
Very true. Very true. Obviously, welcome to the Premier League afterwards. What was your sort of immediate sort of thoughts after promotion? Because obviously there was a lot of upheaval. I mean, none of the loanees could stay for whatever reason. Obviously they all had their own separate individual reasons, for club level valuations or other. Like, I think Jed's case, we knew in January he was going to Spurs.
Yeah.
Obviously, then you had all these influx of signings coming in. How difficult was it to sort of gel again? Obviously, because it was very, even though we say preseason is very important, you got players coming in at different times. You got a lot of players coming in after the season started. Just how difficult was that? Who sort of stood out for you? And even despite all the upheaval and sort of everything, Forest are digging in. They're getting results. They're finding out the hard way how tough it can be, life in the Premier League, and then the sort of corner starts to turn properly really when you get an assist of sorts against Liverpool.
Yeah, like going back to the preseason was strange. Like we knew that a lot of players left, so we knew we had to sign a lot of players, but no one expected the amount of players to come in that did. We knew that the owner was going to be very ambitious and try and obviously do everything possible to stay up. And yeah, as a player, as a kind of not as a senior player in the group as well, you kind of just tried to make it as easy as possible for these signings when they came in. It wasn't really for the players already there to gel; it was to help them come into the group because we had a really tight knit group. It was an easy group to come into because all the lads were very good characters. But we were introducing lads into the group every other day. It was and just trying to make it work, trying to obviously take the lads out for coffees and integrate them into the kind of way we're playing. They must have found it difficult as well. The pitches all got redone, so we was on the other side in the kind of under 21s, 18s pitches. So they were probably thinking, what's going on here as well? The training ground was in the process of change, so it wasn't an easy kind of pre-season. It was we didn't play at the City Ground once. We played obviously Notts County, so you're going into a Premier League season with 20 odd new players, never played at the stadium. We was always going to be up against it, but the narrative that the manager set and his staff set was like, if we stay up with this scenario, it'll be a miracle. So let's do it, kind of thing. Everyone's against us. Everyone's saying Forest are down, it can't work, and they spun it that way to being the underdog story. And to be honest, how the club did stay up in the end was amazing. Steve Cooper done a job probably that not many would be able to do, because it was the circumstances in it. We had a World Cup halfway through the season, 20 odd players, no pitches at the start, didn't play at the City Ground, a World Cup in between, a second pre-season, more players coming in January. So yeah, it was a miracle. But what a story again, kind of the Forest way. The promotion was a miracle. It shouldn't have happened. The year they stayed up probably shouldn't have happened. Got into Europe now. So this story kind of is the Forest way, and it's something special in that.
Yeah, just going kind of fast forward into the second half of that season. Obviously, you got left out of the 25-man squad, and then shortly after, we played Fulham away, and Bolly and McKenna both went off injured. I mean, what was the conversation around Cooper leaving you out? Did you see that coming, or what was the situation like there?
Yeah, it wasn't a good one. Me and Coops are still close. I still speak to him now, but that time wasn't good. I found out on Twitter that I wasn't in the squad, so there was no communication. So that was the biggest kind of disappointment for myself. I was actually going on loan 2 days before to Luton, and I didn't want to go. It was one of them. I didn't want to go. I still felt like I had kind of something to offer at the club. So I went and saw him and said, look, I don't want to go. I'm not going to go. But as long as I'm in the squad, in amongst the squad, I feel like I can kind of contribute and whatnot, then I'm more than happy to stay. If I'm not making the bench, no problem. But I'll be here to train and push. And if I end up playing every game, amazing. If I don't, no problem. I'll support. And then, I trained, whatnot, and then I found out on obviously Twitter that I wasn't in the squad, so that was disappointing. So then it was like, right, so what do I do? Basically, what do I do? So I actually was told to stay away for a bit. So I had kind of a week or 10 days at home to try and keep fit and get my head to see where it was. And it was a guy called Filippo. He came in, an Italian guy. He was director of football or whatever the role was then. That was a difficult spell. Me and the manager obviously fell out a little bit over that. But then I thought to myself, well, I can't do anything, so I might as well train every day, kick on, try and help the group, because it's in my best interest for the club to succeed. And I was going to be there the year after as well. I don't like falling out of people at all. So I had a few days sulking to myself, and the world's come to the end. Like, what am I going to do? I'm never going to play football again, and all this. Like, my family have moved up from Bournemouth to Nottingham. Like, where are we going to be at? So I thought, right, I could have gone to Turkey, America, all these different places. And I thought, no, I'm not doing that. I'm just going to swallow my pride and go in every day, train, help the lads, be in the dressing room. I went to basically every game in the dressing room, still being the voice and trying to help. And some days I was not making the training group, and I'll be running around the pitch on my own and being in the gym, or they'll be like, Cookie, look, we've got too many numbers, you're indoors today. I'm like, all right, yeah, all right, whatever. It is what it is. My family were already going to the Fulham match. I was very, very embarrassed to be in that crowd. I've got to be honest. I kind of walked in with like a towel in between my legs because it was embarrassing. Obviously, 8 weeks before I was starting for Forest in the Premier League. Now I'm not in the squad. I'm in the stands with my family, but it was already planned. I wanted to show up. I wanted to show my support. My friends were still playing. It wasn't their fault. It wasn't their fault. I wasn't in the squad and whatnot. So I was there to support, and I really, really love the club. My kids do, and my family do. So it was like, right, okay, this is bigger than me. I need to kind of crack on and stay fit and get ready for whatever comes. I knew when the two lads got injured, I knew I played far too many games on Football Manager, and I'd left players out far too many times on that game to know that once the squad's set. You don't get back in. Injuries happen. That's it. So I knew I wasn't getting back in the squad, but it was more so to keep my pride. And in football also, you never know what's going to be said about you. And throughout my career, I've been a professional. I've trained every day as best I can, and that wasn't going to change because I've been left out of the squad. I kind of, if anything, I went more the other way and put myself out even more because I had to.
What kind of, because there was then that appeal, wasn't there? I mean, spare a penny for your thoughts when you sat there at Fulham away, because I was there that day as well, and then you see Bolly and McKenna both get injured. You must have thought, Jesus, this is just my luck. And then, that appeal then got rejected. Did you have sympathy for the situation Steve was in because of just the amount of players? It was crazy. And what kind of broke the ice for that kind of the mini fallout between you and him?
To be honest, when the lads got injured, I was devastated because Scotty's one of my close friends.
Yeah.
So I was, but you couldn't write it, could you? It's honestly I actually only thought Willie was down because it was like, and then I see the two centre halves warming up, and what's going on here? And I'm seeing Scotty, and I'm like, oh, nah, surely not. And I was more upset for Scott because it was good, but like he was playing well at the time, and obviously then comes out of the team through injury and is out for more or less the end of the season as well. So, yeah, that was difficult. To be honest, I knew I was never getting back in the squad. I knew the rules of football. I think it was kind of a bit of desperation for the club, which is they're going to try, but I kind of knew that wasn't going to be the case. And yeah, the point, me and the manager never really fell out big time. Like it was just like
a disagreement.
No, yeah, I wouldn't even say it was a disagreement. I can't. I'm not that sort of person. I knew kind of the job he was up against. I didn't want to give him even more of a problem. That there was. It would have been very selfish of myself to then give him another problem. Yeah, obviously I'm not going to sit there and say nothing, but it was also just probably stay out of the way for a bit. So it was probably best off that I was away. There was obviously a lot of change happening, and when I came to leave the club, the relationship I had with the club, I think where I didn't cause any problems, I wanted to help. It would then become easier for me to leave because I was with the 21s from the next pre-season. It was difficult, but I think where I'd done my part and kind of supported the group and supported the manager and still kept that relationship, it was easier for me to go. And when I was leaving to go to QPR, I still had a contract at Forest, so that needed to be sorted out. So I think me being myself and being honest and keeping in relationships at the club, I was desperate to play football. I could have sat at Forest for the next 18 months and took my money and caused a problem or whatnot, but it's just not me. I wanted to go and play. I wanted to go and try and achieve something else in the game. And I think the way I conducted myself at the club every day, it made it easier for the owner and the club to sort things out with QPR and make things work for myself so I could leave. And our stories are, I didn't want anything to come out. I had far too much respect for the club and the manager and the staff to make it about myself. So I wanted to kind of do my business, leave with my head held high, knowing that I'd done everything possible to help the club and help the players. And if myself being in the dressing room, in them games helped 0.1%, then I'll take that.
Just fast forward, obviously, to the end of the season. Like you said at the start, really, it was against all odds of staying up. I mean, what was kind of the feeling in the dressing room around kind of the whole club at that point that would actually achieve something? What, like you said, the media thought we'd go straight back down. To be honest, I'll be completely honest, there was many points in that season where I thought, yeah, we're going to go down.
Yeah,
I mean the heavy beatings away. I think after every away game and the form away, really, you're thinking, oh, this is concerning. But the home form kept us up, and a win against Arsenal to keep us up.
Yeah, well, with that the 4 days after Arsenal, it was unbelievable. We had probably celebrations then than we did when we kind of got promoted. And it was more so like, I'm like, all right, the club have done it, the group of players, because the amount of times players have been written off of like, oh, they're not good enough, too many players signed. The away form was horrendous. It was very difficult to. The manager tried everything. Like the stigma over away games in London was mad. Like where a lot of people would like to stay in London after games. Like we would have Sunday, Monday after. They would ask the manager, "Can we stay in London after?" And I was like, "No." There was something about London where it was just in the manager's head, like we got to try and get a result there, because every time I went down, the only good result, I think it was Chelsea away. Was it 2-2?
2-2, yeah. Tyler got 2.
because we went to away at Arsenal, it was 5-0. There was the stigma around away games was huge. But yeah, the home form, the results, the Southampton game, was ridiculous, really. The Brighton match, and to be honest, I think that was the only way the club was going to stay up was by the home form and the atmosphere. The fans were absolutely. I think it's really impossible for the fans to replicate the atmosphere of that season, and because the home games were special, really special.
Was there any doubts with the group during the season that we was going to go down, or was there always that belief that we would stay up?
I think the Leicester game was a really sad point in where we was at. There was obviously a lot of talk about the manager going, and it was like we didn't know where we was at as going forward from there. There was a lot of talk, and in the end, that kind of got brushed aside, and the owner came out and released a statement about the manager staying and whatnot. And that was the point where we thought, right, okay, we've really got to stick together here because there's so much noise outside the club. It was incredible. There was so much noise around the club, and if anything, those results really pulled us all together. It made the group very strong. The players that came in really helped the group, and the lads that had kind of been through it all, Brennan, Yatesy, I think they'd experienced kind of similar, but on a smaller scale. They'd had a lot of players come in and through. They've seen a lot of managers come through, players come through. The turnover was big, and they kind of kept the group really kind of on side. And there was that kind of underdog feeling in the group. We got something to prove here, and everyone really came through.
Just on that run very quickly, obviously. It was strange because that Leicester game, I remember he changed shape, didn't he? He went to a 4-2-3-1, but we seemed very vulnerable. So I remember Maddison and Barnes just roaming through us like there was nothing in between. Because obviously after that we changed again. We sort of went to a 4-3-1-2 in the end. How did you sort of feel? How difficult was training at that point? Because obviously you've gone up playing a system. All these new players have come in. The managers try to incorporate them in different ways.
Yeah,
we're sort of. It's like, to use a better expression, it's like throwing enough mud at a wall and hoping something sort of sticks. As a player, how difficult was that when you sort of like, okay, so today we're trying something completely different again? And sort of, was it like that, or was it just a case of sort of taking it day by day?
Yeah, it was difficult because everyone was desperate to make things work. And when we sat up in a free, we were like, oh, okay, we're just sat in waiting to lose. Sometimes that's how it wasn't. How we wanted to set up, but you get pinned back. It was like, right, that's not working. So the manager was trying to be more aggressive, more kind of attacking, and then we would be left open. And in the Premier League is ruthless. You don't get many kind of that Leicester game. Everything they hit went in. We missed a couple of chances, and that kind of summed up the ruthlessness of where we were at. And yeah, as a defender in that team, obviously as a player that come through and been promoted, it was really difficult because you were kind of massively in the firing line. But yeah, I think we were desperate. The manager was desperate to change the narrative of where we were at. Can we get a win away? Can we be a bit more aggressive? Can we be a bit more attacking? But the reality was we probably weren't good enough to be that at that point. So that kind of got reversed quite quickly as well. And there was a lot of days today where it was difficult on the training pitch because it was a lot of the times the team that weren't playing would dominate the team that was playing at the time as well because it was more free. So there was doubts definitely in training. But what you always fall back on in the end was the togetherness of the group. With any really tough situation, you always have to fall back and kind of know that you're trying your best and you kind of everyone's got their best interests at heart within the group, and that's something that we did really have in abundance. And I think that's what saw the club stay up, not probably down to tactics. And we were one of the better teams in the league. We were so close. The manager was so tight with the lads. There was so much honesty in the group. And when managers say, "Oh, my door's always open," it's not always true. But Coops's door was always open. You could walk in and have a normal conversation, whether it's football or you're off field or you're worried about what the fans are saying about you on Twitter or whatnot. And there was always that honesty in the group. And that's overall, I think that's what kind of brought everyone together and kept us up.
I was going to say, actually, what in terms of Steve Cooper, obviously everyone's got this perception of him as fans, but in terms of playing for him, what made him so, special to kind of that particular season just seemed, I mean, in my lifetime, I don't think I've seen a manager have such an effect on a group of players. So, I mean, what was his biggest strength, I guess?
Yeah, so the manager, Coops, was totally different manager to what I was used to. So under Eddie Howe, even Scott Parker, like that, they were hard guys, like every single day on you. The way it was intense playing under their managers, and that was something that I kind of thrived off as a player. I went up to Forest, and Coops was a great guy, really good guy, very open, asked me a lot of things, which I really enjoyed as well. He gave me a lot of input, and I learned a lot about him. He learned a lot about myself. Training was still at a high level, but he was very he's a really good guy. He's a caring guy, and he kind of inherited a fractured group at the time when he first came into Forest. So he molded that group into kind of into him. Very open, very honest group. Could speak about everything. He was more of a friend than an overriding manager for me. It was the trust he put in the players was massive. He obviously helped me a lot understand the game in a different way, and he put a lot of trust and a lot of confidence into the players. But also he did have the edge. He could lose his rag, and it meant more. When he does that, it means more because you're not often seeing it. But he also had really good staff around him, like Tatey, like the best guy in the world, really good assistant manager. One of the lads back can lose his old school centre half. He could lose it as well. It was like the mediator of the both, and he was top. So the balance that him and Tatey and the staff had, excuse me, was really, really good. And he was consistent when all the players came in, the Premier League players. He was very consistent in the way he worked as well. So that kind of didn't change. So his morals and the way he wanted the club to be managed stayed the same. And I think, that helped everyone through the bad times.
You obviously, sorry, Adam. Obviously, you're at QPR now. I mean, how did that move come about? Obviously, because QPR were kind of linked with you before you signed for us. So I guess that was a move that was, I guess, 18 months in the making, I suppose. I mean, was that an easy decision to go to QPR?
Yeah, it was. The actual manager and the staff, the people that run the club were different when I went there. So obviously Les Ferdinand left. It was Mark Warburton at the time that wanted me to join them months before. So there was QPR when I was going there, was the staffing and whatnot was all up in the air. Gareth Ainsworth was the manager at the time. But yeah, I wanted to go and play. I was desperate it was difficult for me because I was my pre-season, I was with the 21s and was my head really in it. Training, wasn't working as hard as I probably should be in the pre-season. My family had all moved back. I was traveling up and down. So I was desperate to leave and play football. That period probably was harder than the period where I got left out because I was still training with the first team in pre-season. I wasn't. I was training with the young lads and I didn't play a game really. I played 45 minutes at Stevenage behind closed doors. So the deal, I knew about the interest, but it took a while to sort because I was still under contract. I still had to sort things. I was on Premier League money. I was way out of the budget at QPR because they were going through financial difficulties. So a lot had to be sorted in between as quick as possible because I really wanted to play and I missed a couple of games into the season. So I was always up against it.
Steve, are you all right still for time?
Yeah,
I know
yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Cool. I'll edit that bit out anyway. Obviously, you went to the FA Cup semi-final at Wembley with Forest playing Manchester City at our first visit for a long time for supporters. I mean, I'd never seen Forest at Wembley other than the playoffs, so you used to get reminded by the older generation of, oh, this is an annual trip, but no longer is the case. What was that like going there as a supporter? Because obviously you were at Forest for a very long time, but obviously your connection with the club is pretty strong, and I know your kids are they still quite like going to watch Forest and whatnot. What was that experience like going as a supporter?
Yeah, it was great actually. Originally, I was meant to be in with the fans, and I thought, man, it's going to be a bit carnage for my little one's only 9. So we ended up going into the hospitality bit, which was nice because you could enjoy the game, and I knew he would be able to enjoy the game properly without having to stand on the chairs and having that. I know what Forest fans are like. It's their carnage, their chaos. They bring all the atmosphere, and he's probably not quite there at the moment for that sort of experience. I'm hoping in a couple of years' time I'll be able to throw him in there and he'll really thrive off it. But no, it was great to be there. It was such obviously a shame with the result because I felt they deserved a lot more. But yeah, to be there as a fan was different. 100%. I would have loved to have been there as a player, but my boys really love watching Forest, and obviously we live in Bournemouth now, so it's still difficult to come to home games with myself still playing, but the London games and the ones we try and get to as many as possible, and yeah, keep that connection because we all do really love watching Forest, and I know I wasn't there for long, but it was a special time in my career.
So you mentioned the current side, obviously just there, and then obviously earlier on as well, obviously getting to Europe and whatever else. How do you sort of feel about the current team? Is there anyone? Obviously, you mentioned Gibbs White today. Is there anyone that sort of catches your eye at all? Is there how far do you think it can go in terms of next season? Do you think it's very possible Forest could do well in the Conference League, for example? Do you think they could have a strong Premier League campaign again? How do you sort of see things at the minute?
Yeah, I think it's extremely positive. You know, you look at the players that they're kind of linked with now and signing and improving the squad. In terms of the lads that have had good seasons, I thought Nico Williams was outstanding. He's really grown, and obviously, I thought he was a real pivotal player in Forest season. Woodsy had an amazing season. You don't score that many goals out of luck, so delight for him because he found it. He had a tough start to his Forest career, and it just shows with a bit of time and patience. It doesn't matter where you are, age-wise or points of your career, you can still kind of produce with the backing and the confidence. And I think as long as the club don't lose that, the togetherness and getting into Europe is an amazing achievement. It's going to be very difficult to kind of replicate the season because there's so many teams now that are competitive. You would have thought Man United and Tottenham can't be as bad as they were last year. You've still got the likes of Villa and Newcastle. So I do think the recruitment over the summer is going to be really, really big, and you don't want to lose too many players. Obviously, Elanga be one definitely to fight tooth and nail to keep. And I think once that foundation's set, which it looks like it is, it's not the 10, 12 players coming in now. It looks like the 3, 4, 5, and the added quality and the stadium expansion and the way the club's growing, the training ground. It's such an attractive club to play for, and I really do think they can follow the footsteps of Aston Villa, Newcastle, and start chasing kind of the top 8 and being consistent because the clubs right now they're massive. The smaller clubs, it's going to sound ridiculous because Forest is a big club, but the smaller clubs they're up against it with these financial restrictions. It's the Premier League and the way the rules are set up. Newcastle made Champions League 2 out of 3 seasons and have to sell players. It's mad. So it just goes to show how difficult it will be for Forest to kind of maintain, that European push. So I really, really hope they can. I think the Conference League will be a really good journey. I think it's a great opportunity to go far. You look at there's still some big teams in there, but and there's some interesting kind of away games that can happen. But I really think it's a good opportunity for Forest to go on a run and kind of enjoy Europe again. It's a new competition. It's a competition that if I was a Forest player, I'd look at it and think, we can go on and get to the latter stages of this. Look at Chelsea. So it's a great way of kind of then building and setting down a marker. It's just now, my opinion is how the team kind of balances from these long away trips, European nights, to then Premier League. The Premier League campaign as well, so that's going to be the real balancing point, and I think that's going to be squad wise now. It's got to be really brought together.
Just to run through these quickly, then, Steve, just to round things off. The 30 players that we did bring in, was there any of them who you saw in training and thought, wow, they're really good, but didn't really translate onto the pitch for Forest? Anyone springs to mind?
Yeah, definitely. There was a lot that didn't get a chance through, I don't know, disagreements off the pitch and whatnot. So obviously Loic Bade was an amazing player. Amazing. Didn't get a chance from one reason or another. He came in quite hot, as in opinionated and whatnot. And maybe that didn't fit in the narrative of what the manager wanted. But he was, you're seeing it now, and I always see on Twitter, like, he didn't get given a chance. He was honestly, technically terrific, like real amazing player, but it just didn't work out. And it happens. It's football. Sometimes you just Scarpa, lovely footballer in training, lovely left foot, but was he ready to play Premier League football? Probably not. Physically, had a few injuries. There was lots of players, but Bade was the one that stood out. I think if he managed to get into the team at the time, if he managed to sort out the differences that there was, he would have gone on to being an excellent player for Forest, especially in the way they played. So, there's always going to be ifs and buts, but when that many players come through the door, it's impossible to kind of keep them happy as long as the players you've got also. So, a lot gets said, but a lot happens, in amongst that change room and the club that, rightly so, will never be translated out.
Something we haven't mentioned as well is that day at Market Square. When did the kind of players find out about that, and had anybody been to bed before that day happened?
No, it's been a long day before, and it was an extremely long day after. We all met in I can't remember the pub now, down in West Bridgford. Very early, 9:00 start, I think it was. And it was a long, enjoyable day. I think the less said about that afternoon for me, the better, because it's again, it's like we said before, the things you do when you're on the pitch, and even more so when you've had a lot to drink and the emotions are high. I look back and I honestly cringe, and it's really, really hard to see and listen to. So, but what a day!
When it came to the celebrations after the game, after the playoff final, was it all in London, or did you get back to Notts? Or
so we started in London, and then most went up. I actually stayed in London because all my family were there, so I found it very difficult to have a day like that and leave them. So I got a very early train up to Nottingham. I think I was on the first train back up to Nottingham about 6:30 in the morning. That was they went back to Notts, and there was a private room and lots of drinking and whatnot. But I couldn't leave my family, so that kind of meant more at the time. So I stayed in London and went back up to Nottingham the next day. So there was a very was like we're a Nottingham team. We're not celebrating in London. We're going back to Nottingham to celebrate. So that was the Nottingham Joe Rohrer coming out, and all the lads followed. So it was really nice.
Just a fun one. Favourite restaurant in Nottingham?
Oh,
if you can think of one.
My gosh, I can't remember the name now. The Japanese in West Bridgeford.
Okay.
I can't even remember it now.
Reese was hoping you'd say L'Astoria, which is his favourite.
Oh
Italian
yeah,
in
that's a nice
West Bridgeford.
Italian. Yeah, that's a nice
Yeah.
Italian. Been there a couple of times. That was nice. Yeah, you throw me there. I'm useless with names. I've headed too many balls, guys. I can't remember. Honestly, I walked out my house the other day and I couldn't remember what I was meant to go to the shop for, let alone restaurants in Nottingham. Yeah, you stumped me there.
I'm sure I'll be able to find it. And then just to finally wrap up, we'll finish on a footballing question and something what Christian mentioned earlier, and we didn't really go into it much, but the assist against Liverpool, that cross, obviously Tyra turning in. What was it kind of like after that game? Because obviously Dean Henderson was in the crowd and special day for the club.
That was a great day. I actually wish T didn't hit the post and he smacked it straight in, so I actually got the assist. But I'll forgive him for that because he scored the follow up. But yeah, that was an incredible game. You as fans, you must watch games. You're like, that was just meant to be, and players get that feeling as well. The chances Liverpool missed that day were frightening. I think Van Dijk could have had 4 or 5. Dino was incredible. The lads kind of really dug in, and we knew how we were briefed. We had a big meeting on Liverpool before the game, and kind of the history and the emotions of the match. And early kickoff, sunny day on I think it was BT at the time, BT Sport at the time, and yeah, it was just unreal. And I thought, let's kick on from it, and we didn't manage to as well. But that was a huge result. That was a huge result for confidence, I think, for the players as well as fans. But we rode our luck massively. They at Liverpool were, it was an amazing result. I thought, okay, nice. We beat Liverpool 1-0. We can kick on now, and didn't go. I don't know what the following result was, to be honest, but I don't think we won. So that was kind of the highs and lows of football. 1 minute you're the best, and you think you're going to be playing at Forest for years, and then the next. How was this guy still on the team? So it's like, it was an unbelievable day. That was.
Just out of interest, obviously.
Go on.
Sorry.
Sorry.
Obviously, we had Liverpool in the cup. Klopp was pretty disparaging about Nottingham before in his comments, saying that it's just about Robin Hood in it, Nottingham. Obviously, we probably should have or could have won that game. I mean, that Zinkernagel miss still haunts all of us. Obviously you played in that game as well. I
was injured.
No, you didn't. You're injured, weren't you? Yeah, Grado played. Yeah, but obviously you'd have been around the group. Was there sort of an incentive for you and a few other lads that played that day to sort of put things right?
I think we knew what the game meant. Whether or not to put things right or not, you kind of, when you play games, you try and not get too emotional and think too much about it. But we knew what games meant for the club. The FA Cup game, obviously, the year before, there was no way that we shouldn't have won that game. That was a huge opportunity missed, where we could have really gone on a special run as well. But yeah, I wouldn't say put things right, but we knew going into games what they meant and how they meant. The Coops was very good at putting that across. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But the intentions were always there to kind of give that extra buzz to the players, especially at home. The City ground was such a leveler, if not, it give us so much more when we played the big teams, because naturally these teams were better than us. It's like that's just how it is. But the City ground, it give Forest such a big opportunity to kind of level or give us the advantage. So the manager at the time, Coopsy, and his staff really kind of got into the lads and made us feel that.
Just to finish on QPR, Steve, obviously a new manager's come in the door. I had a quick look at him, and he's done a good job in France with Rennes. I think he won their first trophy in about 50 years of the Cup. He obviously went to Strasbourg. I think the top half finished with them. I've seen you sign the lad from Peterborough yesterday, Pocker, who I because I listened to Peterborough's chairman's podcast and he raves about him. What's kind of the aim for QPR this season? Is it to get in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think it's really exciting times. Definitely, the club has really transformed itself from where it was a couple of years ago. When I first signed, it was, we have to survive by somehow in the Championship, and it was new for me. So it's been a really good kind of test and challenge for myself. But then this year, yeah, we've got a lot of extremely young, talented players. A new manager that everyone's really, really excited about. We've obviously been training for the last 3 days, and it's been really enjoyable, and a new, fresh atmosphere in the club, and it's all positive signs at the moment. We want to improve on previous seasons. We got close last year to the playoffs at one point, and now it's trying to kind of sustain that and seeing where it takes us. I think it's a very tough league this year. Birmingham, Wrexham coming up, and Charlton add to a good league, and with the teams coming down who naturally have the financial kind of advantages. So for us, yeah, I think it's kind of going under the radar and seeing where it takes us and being competitive until the last stage of the season, and seeing if we can kind of make the final jump and seeing what we can do. But yeah, all signs at the moment are really positive and exciting for the club.
Well, good luck with it, Steve, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for also mentioning Football Manager. That is like on our bingo card, top of the list kind of thing.
Yeah,
it's a big topic on this podcast.
I've had to step away. It was taking
I believe Lee is doing a QPR save. I'm not sure if he's struggling to move you on at the moment in your last stage of your career.
Yeah, you did a great job. To be fair, we got promoted. It was great. You were captain, and yeah, it was brilliant. But you weren't leaving. You weren't leaving at all. You didn't want to go.
Yeah, it sounds like right. In the end. Sounds like a similar story, actually. But I don't blame you getting that.
At least they've got your personality correct on that game then.
Yeah, stubborn and hard to shift.
Just to round off, last question: do you still enjoy annoying Derby fans and winding them up?
Oh, I've had to kind of step away from that a little bit. And when we won, we beat them last year 4-0 in Eustace's first game, and
watched it.
I was getting so many tweets from Forest fans. And I thought, I'll do it one last time. That's me done. I've got to get out. I can't keep playing this guy anymore. I'm gonna have to.
I think I went back
a little bit.
I think I seen you retweet the thing where you put "wait, Starvey," and I was like, brilliant.
When I first tweeted that, I'd had a good day out in Hastings with my friends, and I was sat there in between drinks and sat down on my messages, and I'd gone through them, and I was like, I'm getting abused here from Derby fans for no reason, from months ago. So I thought, right, they're gonna get it. Obviously, I woke up next day and I was like, oh my God, what have I done?
Woke up and chose violence. Well done, Steve.
Yeah, literally.
Out here after life.
Have you played at Pride Park since?
Yeah, they beat us last year.
Did you get booed?
I actually didn't. I was surprised. It wasn't so bad.
Let's try harder.
I was actually gone into that game and I was a bit disappointed. And to be fair, we lost 2-0, 2 or 3-0 that day. So I was actually quite glad I kind of didn't get booed because it was a bad day all round. So, but yeah, no, I didn't actually. I think Colback got more boos than me, so it was quite nice to go under the radar.
If you score against them this season, Steve, a bow and arrow celebration never goes amiss. Friend of the pod, Forest fan Colby Bishop, who's at Portsmouth, has done it many times, and he's well loved.
Okay, all right. Well, I'll keep that in mind. If I get on the pitch and I score, I'll definitely do that for you.
And tell Jack as well, in case he scores.
Oh yeah, I will. Yeah. So well, at least there's a couple of us lined up just in case.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much, Steve.
All right, cheers, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We'll see you soon. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Take care, mate. Thank you.
Good that.
So that was Steve Cook. Absolutely brilliant, guys. That was a very, very enjoyable pod. Obviously, if anyone's watched, listened, would like to hear more, it's all free. So subscribe and follow. But until next time,